Hello, fellow fantasy sports junkies. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Ratner, and I'm here with Fantasy Pros expert Andrew Seifter, and as always, Ross the Boss.
Hey, everybody, I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk sports waiver wire with you, cowboy. Dr. Dan, we have the matching shirts today.
Andrew, didn't you get the memo?
I feel left out. It's coming. I'll be showing off soon.
It's coming, but you guys don't have this one. A friend of mine made this for me.
Oh, that's really cool. And we got a bunch of these shirts, and we'll be doing some giveaways and giving them to our fans and stuff. I'm excited to get them out. It's going to be great. What should we talk about first? Quarterbacks on the waiver wire? What's the first order of business?
Get the same 5 quarterbacks that we've been talking about for weeks.
Well, actually,
out of the
I
way.
think
Let's do it fast.
this is kind of a interesting. There's at least one interesting thing to talk about with quarterbacks this week.
Go ahead.
And
Tell us what is it.
So Drew Brees, you may have heard of him. He's had a pretty decent career, I'd say. He has cracked ribs on both sides as well as a collapsed lung. Does not sound great. He's going to miss at least 2 to 3 games, and it could be longer. So that means, drum roll, we have a new quarterback in New Orleans, but who will it be? We don't know.
Will it be
Sean
Hill?
Payton yeah. It could be Taysom Hill. It could be Jameis Winston. And
if it's Taysom Hill, I'm really interested. And I'm not uninterested in Winston, but it does say something that you have to crack ribs on both sides and collapse a lung before you're ready to play.
And the funny thing was, I don't know if you guys saw the game, but Brees wanted to come back, and he was upset at the coach. They got in a yelling match on the sidelines because Brees said, "I want to get back out there," and the coach says, "Absolutely not."
It was the other way around. Actually, he had to.
That was how
Peyton,
he cracked a rib.
He had to tell Peyton he couldn't play, and Peyton.
Oh, I thought it was the opposite.
No,
I thought he wanted to play.
Don't get me wrong. Brees is tough as nails, and he played as long as he possibly could. But I mean, he actually had one broken rib even before the game, coming into the game. So he played through a lot of pain. He had a flak jacket on. Nothing against his toughness at all, but he got to a point where he had to tell Peyton, I can't do it. And I don't think it was because of pain. It was just because he's like, I can't throw the ball right now. Yeah. But anyway, I think this is really interesting for fantasy because I personally think either of these two guys could be quite valuable in fantasy if they're the guy. The problem is there's a good chance we're going to see more of what we saw last week, which is kind of a split between the two of them. They already used Taysom Hill for a bunch of packages of plays, even when Brees was healthy, and I figure they're going to do even more of that now.
But this is why I don't have them on my list. I mean, they're interesting, but I don't have them on my list as somebody.
But Winston got his eyes fixed. He's ready. He got his eyes fixed over the offseason. He blamed that for his interceptions last season. So now, that being said, he's ready to roll. You're not taking him as your number 1 pick on the waiver wire today, Dan?
I am not. I have Teddy Bridgewater as my number 1.
Well, he's
playing
against
Detroit.
Though.
He's injured too.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
Yeah, he injured his
during
knee.
the game.
He might be able to play through it. They haven't said yet, but it's a
well, I got to bump him
knee.
down my list then. In that case, Tua goes to number 1. I've been talking about Tua for a while. He's looking good to me. I don't like him playing at Denver that
thing
much.
A little bit more.
Go ahead, Andrew. Let's talk about it.
So here's the thing. I'm not like I sort of see what Dan's saying because I personally would not be super comfortable starting either of these quarterbacks this week, even though they have a great matchup. They're playing Atlanta, so I think that I think there's an appeal to the matchup. But Sean Payton said he's not going to announce a starter prior to the game, so it's really you have to kind of take a leap of faith. I think most people are widely assuming that Jameis is going to be the starter and that Hill will kind of stay in the same role that he had before. And if that's the case, I think Jameis would be a great option. The problem is we just don't know if that's true. And, Sean Payton has praised, he loves Taysom Hill. He's compared him to Steve Young. They signed him to a giant contract. He's one of the, Ross, you love to talk about contracts. Taysom Hill is one of the 50 or 60 highest paid players in the entire NFL. So they have talked about him as their QB of the future. Now, in the middle of last week's game, he had a package of plays, so they weren't going to make him. He wasn't prepared to step in and be the quarterback for last week's game, but he could be for this week's game. So we really don't know what's going to happen.
So what do you do? Do you pick up Winston?
If
pick up Hill?
Don't pick up.
Do you start one of them?
No, don't pick up either, guys.
Don't pick up either. Don't start any of them.
No,
okay.
I have the floor here. All right, guys, listen. If you start either one of these guys, they could get benched midway. There's just no reason to take that chance. You're looking at bye week fill-ins. I just don't see the advantage.
Yeah, but Atlanta Falcons, it sounds so tempting. Ooh.
Well, you could play Kirk Cousins against Dallas. Why not just play Kirk Cousins against Dallas? It's not much worse.
I mean, Jameis Winston could only play like half the game and throw as many passes as Kirk Cousins will throw in a whole game, though. But no, I do agree with you, Dan, in terms of if you're just looking for a 1 week streamer, I might look else. Actually, the guy I would actually look at is Andy Dalton, but we'll get to that in a minute. But But I think if you're not happy with your starting quarterback, we sometimes talk about stashing these players, and anytime you would have argued to stash Tua for his potential upside, I would argue that the upside of these New Orleans guys is actually much higher. I think either of them, if they end up getting the job and having it the rest of the season, could be a top 10 quarterback. So if I don't have a top 10 quarterback, I would stash those guys. I don't think so.
So could Tua.
I'm not seeing it.
His quarterback rating is over 100 the last 2 games.
I think Tua's great. He's not
quarterback rating doesn't get you any fantasy points.
Yeah. He's just not scoring the touchdowns.
No. Listen, I know quarterback rating doesn't get you fantasy points, but it is the sign of a good quarterback, and that could start to get you fantasy points. And given that we're not looking at the greatest options anyway, and he runs, potentially, I take Tua.
Well, but you know how many yards he ran for last week? -1. I don't think he's actually
guys,
going to be a big-time running quarterback.
So my number one quarterback this week is Kirk Cousins. He's tearing it up against the Bears right now as we talk. He's going to throw over 300 yards against the Bears. He has 2 touchdown passes. He to me is he'll be consistent. If you need this is saying if you really need a quarterback, unless you should have a quarterback better than Kirk Cousins on your team. If you don't, you're not going to win your league anyway.
Well, if it's a bye week. If it's a bye week fill-in.
The bye weeks are running really low right now. Let's not fool each other.
It's true.
I mean, we're running out of steam with the bye weeks. The bye weeks are bye-bye. You know what I mean?
It's true, but I will say...
Let's talk the truth here. If you really need a quarterback, pick up... My first pick is Cousins. My second is Tua. After that, I'm worried about Bridgewater. His health is not great. I mean, just...
Carr has underperformed lately.
You were just talking about quarterback rating. He actually was one of the highest rated passers in the league last week. He just didn't have... They happened to get all their touchdowns on the ground.
0 touchdown passes. 0 touchdown passes. And he was 170 yards.
Derek Carr is playing better than Tua has so far. By
I know,
far.
but he's not consistent.
He is.
0 touchdown passes.
Listen,
they're very arguable.
I have 2 on my list, but if you're, I think there are still bye weeks this week. So if you're looking for a bye week play, I think that Kirk Cousins is fine. I prefer Andy Dalton on the other side of that same matchup, just because when he had this very short stretch of 2 games where their offensive line was completely decimated and they couldn't get anything going. But he's got fantastic weapons. He was a solid quarterback for a long time in Cincinnati. He's not spectacular, but he's very solid. He was at least as good in Cincinnati as Kirk Cousins has been at any point in his career.
I'm not disagreeing, but the thing about Dalton is this. I told you the Dalton thing. If he's playing at night, or
is that what's happening?
Well, he's never going to play at night anymore because nobody wants to watch the Cowboys.
If he's playing at night, or if he's playing on Thanksgiving Day, which he is. You don't start him.
Yeah.
But that's next week.
It's a big rule. I know. I'm just telling you guys. He's awful. He's awful with the lights on him. He's just not good. He's horrible. I won so much money betting against him in my life.
But
it's unbelievable.
But basically, I hear what you're saying, Ross, and you were right about that last time. So I'm going to take you seriously on that. But I would just say, big picture, the way I look at it is, if I don't love my starting quarterback, I'm very interested in stashing. Like in one league, I have Carson Wentz as my quarterback, and I'm worried about that. So in that kind of a league, I'm interested in stashing in this order. I would stash Jameis Winston first, then I would stash Taysom Hill, and then I would stash Tua as upside plays. But I wouldn't want to start them necessarily this week. If I had to start one of them, I probably would be Tua. But in terms of streaming, I like Dalton first, and then maybe Cousins. So that's where I'm at.
Let's talk about Tannehill. Tannehill actually came back to earth. He's not as great as everybody thinks he is. He's not going to win you any leagues.
Still over 50%. I don't know.
That's fine, but I'm just saying you're a big Tannehill guy. If you started him last week, you probably lost your game. I guarantee you lost your game if you started Tannehill last week. So the Tannehill era is over with. Let's move on. Let's not pretend he's a top 10 quarterback.
Okay, I'm going to remind you when he comes back with.
That's fine. Draft him. I'd love to be in leagues with you.
I think it's amazing. It's amazing that we managed to talk for 10 minutes about the quarterbacks. Let's move on to running backs.
We can do this every week.
Let's talk about running backs. Okay, who's your number one? Go.
Here's the first thing. I got to give props to Ross the Boss because he called Kalen Ballage. He called Kalen Ballage
Arizona State alumnus, yep.
And he is looking legit. And I think, especially if you're looking for a 1-week play, he's playing the Jets. Ooh. I think this is a great play.
Andrew, what do you think about Ballage?
No, I'm not in on Ballage still. Sorry. I think that it's just a
what does this guy have to do?
He hasn't done that much. His efficiency was actually terrible in that game.
Oh yeah, okay.
He's not.
He ran
a good
for 4 yards a carry.
Did he? I think it was a little.
He did. He ran.
He ran for 4 yards a carry. It may have been inefficient. I don't know. I didn't check.
Yeah.
Okay.
My
second guy. Okay. Go ahead.
This is great. Who's your second guy?
I'm torn, but I'm going to have Alexander Madison as my second guy. He's still this upside play. They're playing Dallas, so I think game flow is going to get him involved eventually, and he's going to put up some decent numbers. Plus, he's the long-term play.
Andrew? Madison,
you're naming a bunch of players that aren't on my list, but
I love it.
My number one option is the RB3. And when I say RB3, I don't mean like a top 36 kind of running back. The actual third best running back over the last month, and he's only 50% rostered in Yahoo leagues, and that's Wayne Gallman. Wayne Gallman with the Giants.
Oh, he had 2 TDs last week.
Well, Gallman is my first.
I actually had a number 2. I had a number 2 this week.
Here's the other thing. He's going to dip. I bet you he dips under 50% soon. So if you're looking at that 50% mark, because he's on bye. Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Gallman is a great pickup.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Devonta Freeman's going to get that job back with how well Gallman is playing. And
who's your number 2?
Won a game. They're actually, maybe they could actually win that division. It's up for grabs. So I think he's working his way into that like at least low end RB2 every week kind of territory.
Who's your number 2?
My second pick is also from New York, the other team there, and that's LaMichael Pirine. Who's still just 25% rostered, and a report came out that they are planning for him to be their featured back in the second half of the season. So starting running backs do not grow on trees, and I'll take that over someone like Ballage, who is still going to have to fight off Troy Maine-Pope. He's still going to have to fight off Joshua Kelly, and then Austin Eckler is going to be back in a week or two, and he's going to be the back to own in that backfield. So
Ross,
I think
Pirine
could have rest of season value.
Ross, what do you think about this? And then
I did something crazy. I did something really nuts not that crazy, but on Sunday morning around 9:55.
Don't tell people if you stole a car. Don't tell.
I dropped. Who did I drop? I dropped. I dropped.
I hope you
Howard.
dropped
I dropped Howard for the Dolphins.
Oh, you should have done that months ago.
Well, I just had him. I didn't really. I dropped Howard and I picked up the other running back from Miami who had a good game.
Matt Prater? Oh,
Salvon Ahmed.
Salvon Ahmed. Thank you.
He's my number 4.
I picked up Salvon Ahmed and he had a touchdown. He was great. I mean,
yeah,
he
won
my
thinking
league.
About moving him up ahead of
he won my league. So Salvon Ahmed is my hero of the week. He have him 4. He was a genius move by Ross the Boss. I heard he was starting, and I love running backs who get featured, as you know. And I just started him. I said, I'll take a chance on this guy. I knew a little bit about him, not much, but he had a great game. And so for that reason, he's my number 1 pickup this week.
That's fair.
Nice.
Because I didn't bring his name up. I mean, I brought up all these other names, guys. We all brought up the whole week. Every week, it's like Madison.
All right, but listen, guys, this is important.
But now we need new names, new blood.
I know. And listen, I read another report. This is very important. I read a report that LaMichael Pirine plays for the Jets. And so I'm really not that interested. I don't care how
Jets
much you run.
Argument again. I mean, I've been
picking on the Jets all season.
Come on, you're really going to start a Jet? Seriously?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're the worst team in the league. You can't start
It's a desperation play. I mean, Kalen Ballage
you're
might
there
help
watching
you win
Jet
a week
games,
at
worried
least.
about the running.
Pirine
First of all,
not
the
going to.
score so much. They're getting killed by so many points.
How
They got
about
to
the
pass
fact
the
that
ball.
Lamichael Pirine might actually be good, though, where he could be good.
I picked him up a couple weeks ago.
You can't be good on.
I picked him up, and he
also, by the
just
way.
0 point. Horrible. 2 points a game. Come on. Who
Yeah,
else? Who else tried to pick up?
Kalen
running back
Ballage
wise?
has been good.
I do like Ahmed, though, because he could actually be good.
He's your number 4. Who's your number 3?
Hold on. Can't we just actually talk about these players a little? So
Yeah,
Salvon
go ahead.
Ahmed, I think the way I look at him is I think that he has he's going to be a better play than Pirine, I think, for this 1 week coming up. But the thing is that Gaskin should be back the game after that. And at that point, Ahmed's value could dry up. So that's kind of the thing I'm weighing is whether, I would rather get the immediate play or the guy that I think has a better chance to be a starting running back for the rest of the season.
Yeah, but I'm worried about playoffs. I want to make the playoffs. I need guys that are going to score this week, next week.
Well, then who you should pick up then?
Who?
Carlos Hyde. Because Carlos Hyde is
he come
apparently ahead of Chris Carson in their recovery, and they play on a short week on Thursday. So I think Carlos Hyde, there's a good chance he's going to play in that game.
He was doubtful last
Carson's
week, so
not.
you think he'll be questioned? Maybe
Yeah,
questionable,
I saw
probable.
a report just before we went on that Hyde is ahead of Carson in his recovery.
Andrew, pick up Hyde. Okay, not Andrew. I mean Dan.
I don't think I'm going to, but I could consider it. I'd rather have a guy like Boston Scott who has some long-term value, but I will say this. My philosophy has really changed over the years more towards what Ross was just saying. If you've got a guy who can win you a week now, get him. You don't
Just
know
get
what's
him.
coming.
Just worry week to week. You got to manage your
That's
team
why
week
I
to
have
week.
Kalen Ballage first.
You don't have time to worry about the future. Unless your team's like 9-1 or 8-2.
Well,
great.
I don't really. I guess I don't really agree with you guys on that. I think that yes, you have to. If there's a guy that's much better in the short term, you got to get him on your roster. But I've tried to balance things because I also want to look at a guy who's got short and long term value. I'll always take a player that has short and long term value over a guy that only has short term value.
Well,
there's no comparison.
nobody's going to argue with you about that.
Well, but I'm saying
especially
even if
pretty
it's like
even.
maybe a little bit less short-term value and a assured role long-term, I think that's preferable to me.
Whoa.
These are fair arguments.
It depends who's on your bench. I mean, if you have stars on your bench and just trying to fill in for a bye week or somebody's injured.
It also depends on your record.
Totally.
And
I'm fighting for my life here.
8-2, and I'm trying to squeak into the playoffs. So
Well, thank you, Dan. But
There you go.
the other aspect of that, though, in my mind, is I'm always very aware of the fact that there's not as much certainty in any one game as you might think there is. So you might be really confident that one guy's a better play than another guy for 1 week, but there's like a 40% chance you're going to be wrong on that. So that's why I'm much more interested in the stability of a role in an offense.
I mean, look, I am too.
Is there any running backs we're missing, guys? Is there anybody that we did not talk about?
Well, I'm interested in Cam Akers as a deep stash too. That Rams backfield is still a mess, but Akers actually led the team in carries last week. He had 10 carries. Nobody else had more than 6. The other guy scored the touchdown, so they had more fantasy points. But I do feel like that backfield is trending finally in Akers' direction. He's not a guy you can plug into your lineup, but if you're looking for a guy to stash and just see what happens, maybe like a Tua of running backs, then go ahead and grab Akers.
I like Green Acres. It's one of my favorite shows. Green Acres.
I was going to say that. And he's a rookie, too.
He's a rookie. Florida.
He's a rookie, so he's green.
Florida.
All right. So let's move to wide receivers. To me,
yes,
the wide receiver category this week is an easy number 1 for me. But I'm not going to say it yet. Oh, okay, I'll start out.
I don't have an easy number.
I believe.
Nothing's easy.
Interesting. Well, my number 1 is Jacoby Myers. He was, I believe he was your guys' number 1 last week.
I had him last week. I had him last week with Andrew. I mean, I saw the pass.
Actually, he might have been my number 1.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about him already, but you can bring him up again.
I just think he has the upside. He's got the role, and he's got less question marks than the other guys on my list. But maybe I'm missing something.
No, I actually agree with you. That's the reason that I have him number 1 too. Is I think most of the receivers I'm interested in are a little bit more speculative, and he already has that role. I just think his upside is capped because the Patriots don't throw the ball that much, and they especially don't throw the ball that much near the goal line. That's Cam Newton's zone. So I don't think he's ever going to be a wide receiver 2. I think he's kind of capped as a wide receiver 3, but I think he's like an every week wide receiver 3 and is very solid in that role. So that definitely has value.
Okay, so my number one is not.
Might pick up might lose their value.
My number one is not Jacoby Myers.
Okay, who is it?
What do you got?
My number one pick this week is MVS for the Green Bay Packers. He had over 100 yards, had a touchdown. I watched the game. I feel Rodgers is really liking him now. He's really like taking a like to this receiver. And Devonte Adams will get his 100 yards and touchdown, maybe 2 touchdowns. We all know he's one of the best receivers in the league. I don't know if he's the best with Hopkins, but long story short, MVS is my number one this week.
I love it, Ross.
Is Lazard coming back?
I don't necessarily agree, but I love it. I love the call. So here's the thing. I have had MVS on my dynasty roster since he was drafted. I wanted to get some stake in that Packers offense for cheap, and that's the way I went. And I think on the first show we did on this waiver wire show, we talked about MVS versus Lazard, and I said I preferred MVS because of his big play upside. And then I really changed my tune. I think that Lazard stepped up and sort of looked, Rodgers had a lot more trust in him than he did in MVS. But I watched that game last week as well, and I agree. It was by far the best game that MVS has ever played. He's had a lot of, boom or bust. He's had some big statistical games at other times because he'll catch that like 60-yard touchdown pass. But in that game, he not only caught the big touchdown, but he also made some really nice plays where he sort of, Rodgers rolled out and he read where he was going and stopped, his feet in the sand and caught that pass in traffic. And plays like that are what will earn the trust of Rodgers. So I still have Lazard higher than MVS right now, because, but I think it could go either way.
I do too, but I can understand the call.
Yeah, and if it pans out, MVS is going to be really valuable. So I like the call.
And in a way, you could say that we're really calling for the same thing. If you've got who's essentially going to be the wide receiver 2 in the Packers offense, that's who you want.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, who's your number? So your number, but both you guys are Jacoby Myers, huh? I'm impressed.
Yeah.
We talked. Who's number 2 for you guys?
I have an old favorite of mine who. I actually did mention dropping him too last week, I believe, but it's Cole Beasley with the Bills. He had a fantastic performance.
We talked about him.
But John Brown just got hurt again.
I saw.
So if he's hurt, Beasley is going to see even more targets.
Let me say one other thing about that.
He made a great catch. He made a great catch on Sunday.
Yeah, he sure did.
Oh my God! That was
Let me say another thing
Ratner catch.
Supporting this though. I like it. So the other thing about Beasley is they're on bye, aren't they? So this is somebody you can steal for cheap. People are so nearsighted about the bye weeks, and they'll cut a player like that, or he might have even been on the wire anyway. But the people who are thinking about it like Ross and I were, which sometimes is a good thing, but sometimes is not. So you're going to be able to get him more easily. I have him as my number 5, but I do have him on my list.
I have him on the list too, honestly.
Well, the other thing I want to say about Beasley
I had him on my list for the past 3 weeks, I think, too.
The other thing I want to say about him is I think he gets typecast a little bit as like, the quote-unquote possession receiver, which doesn't have that much upside. But he actually scores a fair number of touchdowns if you look at it. And this last week was actually his 3rd game he's gone over 100 yards this season. So he actually has more upside than I think some people might realize.
Okay.
I agree. I just picked some guys who I think have even more upside. I have Jalen Reagor. And Mecole Hardman is just, I'm always coming back and forth with him. I'm like, I can't even own him.
He destroys me every time I start him. He destroys me. So I dropped him from my team. The one guy who got a lot of targets on Sunday from golf is Josh Reynolds. He actually had
also
a good
guy
game.
I've had on my dynasty team forever.
Of course, every
just don't
player I
trust
say he's on your dynasty. So Reynolds had 9. He had 9 targets. He had more targets than almost any receiver for the Rams. It could be a good little pickup if you need a receiver. I'm not saying you should start him, but just be aware of him because the Rams are starting to throw the ball a lot more now. The running backs are not going to get the ball as much. Goff is going to just let it go.
Yeah, it's so that offense. McVay is such a maverick.
I love McVay.
They're always changing up their offense, and now it seems like Reynolds has become like their go-to receiver. All of a sudden, he ran more routes than Kupp last week. He has at least 8 targets in 3 straight games, and I just saw a stat that he has more fantasy points since week 4 than Robert Woods does. So he might actually be their number 1 receiver at this point.
Well, that's the thing about the Rams, though, is you just don't know. It's almost like tight ends.
You don't know.
I think we should move on to tight ends.
Well, no.
Tight ends are the same thing.
Yeah. Let's just let Andrew go. What is it?
Hold on.
Okay, here we go. Whoa. Andrew, please.
I know you love Rager, and I still have him on my list, but there's another rookie wide receiver that I think has a lot of upside, but also has maybe an easier path to being the number 1 guy in his offense, and that's Michael Pitman with the Colts. We all know T.Y. Hilton has fallen off a cliff, and they need somebody to step up. He played the most snaps of all their receivers.
I called him last week.
So how many yards did he have? How many yards? Seriously. How many yards did he have?
65 yards or something like that, I think.
Right. I mean, his yards are very minimal. I mean,
no, he just came back like 2 weeks ago.
But he's done nothing the whole. Look at his stats. He's done nothing the whole year.
Well, that happens with rookies a lot. He could have a big.
If you're starting Pitman, you're going to lose your game. Who else do you got?
One of Ross's classic lines.
Attitude.
I mean, serious. I mean, will you ever start Pitman, Dan?
You never know, man. I mean, especially if you're in a tight spot, you're in a.
Okay, who else do you got? Pitman, I would not start. Who? Tell me who else.
I wouldn't want to be starting him, but
like I said, Lazard is another guy that you need to.
When's he coming back?
I think this week he's going to come back.
I have Lazard. Just so you know, I have him stashed in some of my leagues because of you guys. So I'm excited.
I have him in the top. I have him in my top 5. I still believe in Lazard.
I just want him to play. I mean, every week he's coming back, and then inactive.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
When he doesn't play, he sucks.
We can go to
tight ends. Go. Who do you want?
Tight ends.
Kelsey.
Yeah, I like Travis Kelce, number 1.
He's past his bye week now, so he's usable.
Of the guys that we talk about, I'm still banging the drum for Irv Smith. Irv Smith is playing against the Cowboys.
Go on next. Yeah, Irv Smith's hurt.
Is he actually hurt?
Yeah, he's not playing tonight.
He's hurt. He's not playing. He's out tonight. So
I'm not calling for tonight.
Horrible pickup for Irv Smith. He's not even playing. He's not suited. He's in the locker room watching the game.
He's not suited. We're not calling for tonight. We're calling for next week.
Okay. Well, he's probably be doubtful. So who else do you have?
Well, listen, the guys who are starting are not much better.
So Andre. I'm gonna say Andre Reed. Isn't that funny? I like Andre Jordan.
He's a great tight end.
Jordan Reed.
Jordan Reed. Thank you.
I know you're a big fan.
Jordan Reed. 60 yards for the Niners. Six catches.
I have him
not
4,
bad,
but he's
not
on a
bad.
bye.
Wait, Ross.
Not play.
When Michael Pittman had 60 yards, you poo-pooed it.
Tight ends and receivers are here. Tight ends are down here. I still like Logan Thomas. I know you guys don't like him.
Well, okay. So
I do. Remember, Ross? I've always been with
you. Andrew doesn't like him. Andrew made fun of him because of his name.
Logan Thomas is I'm still not a huge fan, but I am coming around a little bit just because tight end is so terrible.
Yes.
It's so. I saw a shocking stat. He has not had more than 60 yards in a game all season, but somehow he's been a top 10 tight end in 3 of the last 4 weeks just because tight end is that bad.
Tight end is horrible.
Yeah. And I actually think Alex Smith helps Logan Thomas because Alex Smith does not throw the ball down the field at all. So he's just dumping it off to the running back and the tight end.
Alex Smith over 300 yards. Alex Smith over 300 yards last.
That was the most ridiculous 390 yards I've ever seen.
You gotta love him. I'm
going to mention a couple of others.
It's a great comeback story.
Who else? What other tight end? All right. Well, the tight ends are hit or miss.
Let me come full circle back to quarterback for a second here. In ESPN leagues, Taysom Hill has tight end eligibility, and that could be a serious cheat code if you can play him at tight end. Do you remember Marquez Colston with the Saints back in the day? He was a wide receiver that got tight end eligibility, and he was the number 1 tight end in fantasy, and just put up, wide receiver 1 numbers at tight end, and it was like dominating. I think, Taysom Hill would be even more extreme than that if he ended up being the quarterback.
That's a great cheat code.
And you can
that's
use
a great
tight
one.
End. So you got to pick him up.
That's a great one. If he's eligible tight end, I'm going to pick him up.
And he's also at tight end eligible in DFS.
And start him, Andrew. And start him, Andrew. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then I have Logan Thomas, you said. And then I'm going to say another guy that I think you guys have been higher on than me, or at least I know Dan has. That's Dalton Schultz with Dallas.
Yep.
He's similar to me.
He keeps putting up numbers even with no quarterback.
Yeah.
With Andy Dalton back,
it's just with Dallas. It's just so hard for me to start. Even Cooper, it's hard for me to start.
Yeah, but I mean, who are you comparing? You're comparing him to.
I waived Elliott already. I mean, what else do you want me to do with my Dallas team? Do you want me to waive more players?
I assume
Ross,
you don't have any. If you,
I would have Jordan Reed ahead of these guys, but he's on bye, and
you're right.
I don't think he's good enough to hold over the bye personally.
That's why I have him fourth.
Yeah, but what I would say about Logan Thomas and Dalton Schultz is that it's not so much that my estimation of them has risen as much as my estimation of tight ends has declined. So it's reached
I'm in the same boat, Andrew. I'm in the same boat with you. I agree with you.
I'll take a guy who will get 6 targets.
There's like 3 tight ends that are worth taking in fantasy football, and then it's a big drop.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's part of why Ross and I have been on board with a guy like Logan Thomas for a while. And you guys have talked about Mo Alley Cox, but a guy like that, I'd rather have Logan Thomas. At least he's going to give me something.
At least he's getting some targets and may have a touchdown. If he gets 1 touchdown, I'll be dancing in the streets. You know what I mean? It's just.
Let's quickly move to defense and kicker because I want to save some time for our favorite part, which is like who to cut. We'll get there soon.
Okay.
Defense, to me, the number 1 pick is extremely clear.
It's always the team playing the Jets, right?
It is, and it's the Chargers.
Yeah.
But there are 2 teams that have 2 pretty good matchups coming up.
The Chargers defense, I would never take. It's
even against the Jets.
Even against the Jets.
Guys, I can't do it. They're so bad.
Who are you taking over them?
I actually like Cleveland's defense this week.
Well, I have them ranked 3rd. They have Philadelphia this week, and they're not that good. And then they have Jacksonville the following week.
That's what I was going to say. The matchups, the same thing. And then my second defense is the team of Washington. I feel their defense is being picked up. Andrew likes it, and they're playing. Andrew, who are they playing on Sunday?
They're playing your
Cincinnati.
Bengals. Yeah,
they're playing Cincinnati.
Yeah. Well, here's a fun stat.
But then they have Dallas the next week.
Here's a fun stat. The Washington football
team.
The Washington football team is in the top 5 in the NFL in sacks, and the Bengals are top 2 in most sacks allowed.
Wow.
So you're going to see Joe Burrow go down a whole bunch in that game, and that's going to get you some nice fantasy points.
Yeah, I mean, these are defenses, just remind everybody, under 50%. So that's why we're not picking Pittsburgh.
There's one other one I want to mention, though.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. And that's the key point to remember. But there's one other team that I'm thinking about picking up. It's not a good matchup for this week. This is more for next week or going forward. It's the LA Rams. They're playing Tampa Bay at Tampa Bay. You do not want them. You do not want them this week.
No,
but
I'm scared of that.
They're under 50% because they are playing Tampa Bay. So if you have room on your roster and you're looking for a defense, I think they're a good pickup.
Yeah, no, I thought about that. They're actually a really good defense. I mean,
they went after Russell Wilson on Sunday, and he was sacked. He was so frustrated yesterday. It was great.
Yeah. My problem is that they actually have a number of tough games left on their schedule. So
they really do. You're right. I checked that out.
Whether you can trust them or not, but they're a great defense. That's why I don't invest that highly in defenses to begin with, because
I don't either.
Like you can draft a defense in the 9th round of your fantasy draft, and then you're going to bench them in week 1 because they're playing the Chiefs. That's just the way it rolls with defenses. But I have one other one too that is
good.
It is matchup based, and it's actually a defense that I mentioned last week as well. Which is the Detroit Lions, which are not a good defense, but they're playing Carolina. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, Teddy Bridgewater may not play. Christian McCaffrey has already basically been ruled out for another week. So if you're going against the Panthers without Bridgewater and McCaffrey, that could be an interesting streaming opportunity.
That's a good one. And that's why, Andrew, I listened to you. I probably will pick that defense up in one of my leagues, actually.
Well, there you go.
See what happens.
All right, kickers.
All right, now.
Kickers, Andrew's favorite subject.
I know I'm gonna agree with Andrew on my number 1.
Let's talk about Matt Prater real quick. Matt Prater,
our kicker.
He was on our show, came in there, 59-yarder, nailed it to win the game. I mean, he's doing a pretty good job this year. He's won like 2 games for them already. So
yeah. I saw he's actually missed a career high number of field goals.
I saw that
but
too.
He's
like
also
6.
made a lot of long ones too.
I saw that. But
I'll take my chances on him making his kicks the rest of the season. He's pretty clutch.
I like when the Lions win. It makes me feel good. I always feel that I feel bad.
Unfortunately,
for
it doesn't happen that often. But yeah.
No, I know. But what kickers do you guys like? What kickers that are under 50% do you guys should I?
I'm pretty sure Andrew's got the same number 1 as me because he's had the same number 1 for a while. Jason Myers.
I have
the
him
Seattle
number 2,
offense.
Now, just hold on, whoa, on Jason Myers. His attempts on field goals is the least in the league. Did you know that? He does not attempt that many field goals.
Well, lately it's been different though, Ross. I think he scored double-digit fantasy points in like 3 of the last 4 games.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I've been looking at his field goals attempts. It's very low. It's very low.
Wait, Ross. Let's guess. We should guess who he's going to pick. He didn't have Myers number 1, so I have another guess. It's Blankenship.
That's mine
against Green Bay.
Mine's Blankenship.
He's my number 2.
Nope.
I took Blankenship.
Nope.
It's not. Oh, it's
a guy that's been that got dropped from a lot of teams because of his bye, but he's been one of the best kickers all season.
Ooh. Dropped because of his bye.
Oh, is it Butker?
No, it's Greg.
He's
Greg
over 50% owned.
Butker is still over.
Oh.
Is it Greg Zuerlein?
No, he hasn't been one of the best this year because their offense has been.
Yeah,
so
but it's
bad.
Greg the Leg.
It's Young Ho Koo with the Falcons.
Koo.
I thought he was 50%.
No, he's not.
50%.
He's right at 50%. He's right.
Below, but yeah.
No, you could take him.
Speaking of cheat codes,
yeah,
I'm kidding.
No, I like Koo.
We've confirmed that on the show before.
I like Koo.
Yes,
that's a
we
good
have.
one.
Yeah.
But my number 1's Blankenship. My number 2 is Bullock for the Bengals. I feel that's going to be a lot of field goals for the Bengals against the Washington defense. We'll see what happens. Anybody else in kickers that we should worry about?
I like Boswell against Jacksonville. But
Boswell. I have Boswell third, and then I have Badgley as well. I mean, the Chargers are just going to run all over the Jets. So
I can't trust Badgley because I played him earlier this season and he scored 2 points.
Lot. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Badgley.
He's been making a lot of field goals lately. So I think
he's going to kick a lot. He should be kicking a lot against the Jets, but they might just keep marching into the end zone. All right, guys, let's move on to my favorite part. My favorite part is who to cut. And we can argue about all these guys that we've been saying we should cut for a while. Go ahead, Ross.
So this is where we cut somebody over 50%, correct?
And we're starting with quarterbacks, right?
Quarterbacks. Yes. So my one who I would cut is Carson Wentz. His stats this year have been not good. Every quarterback that he's gone against has a better quarterback rating than him in every game. Every game, not just 80%, but all the games he's played against every quarterback, he's had a worse quarterback rating against. He's making horrible decisions. He signed this $100 million deal. I have no idea why he still has a job. Hurts should be out there playing quarterback for the Eagles. You know I'm right, Andrew. You know I'm right. Just admit it.
I don't know you're right. I know you're right that he's not playing well, and I agree with that. But again, quarterback rating and fantasy are not the same thing.
I'm just telling you, he's making horrible decisions.
But listen, much like Cam Newton has put up big fantasy points ugly at times this season, so is Carson Wentz because of his rushing ability. I've got, there's some other quarterbacks that have.
Okay, well, I would cut Carson. Carson Wentz would be the one I would cut.
Okay. Well,
who do you guys have?
Listen, I'm giving Carson Wentz another week. Then
you'll lose another week. Start him. Go ahead.
His receivers all just got healthy. Last week he was terrible, but I'm giving him another chance.
Bad.
So the guys I would drop, there's 3 quarterbacks I'd be okay dropping, actually, that are over 50% rostered. One is Drew Brees. Everyone thinks of the old Drew Brees, but actually this year he was barely a top 20 quarterback.
I agree. I said
even when he was healthy.
Ago. Yeah.
So there's no reason to hold him for 3 weeks.
I dropped him 5 weeks ago, just so you know.
Yeah. I mean, if you have an IR spot, sure, but otherwise let him go. And then 2 other quarterbacks who might be a little bit overrated. I know one of these guys, Dan, you mentioned dropping last week, but we reminded you he's had a great matchup with the Seahawks, but he doesn't have a great matchup anymore, and that's Jared Goff. He just hasn't really been putting up great fantasy numbers at all. So there's no reason to hold on to him in rough matchups.
I agree. He's totally pedestrian. He's the first one I would drop. But I also think it's time to move on from Cam Newton. I've been saying it for a while.
No, Cam Newton had another great. I mean, he. If you look at where he finishes, he finished as the QB 11. I think this last week. Every week, you can't just look at the passing.
Yeah, but see,
numbers.
think about that. Okay, but think about that. You're saying he performed great and he was the QB 11. That's why he's cuttable. I'm not saying to cut him. But I think he's cuttable.
If you take a guy, so I believe he's finished as a top 12 quarterback now in 7 of his 9 games or something like that. He's never like the QB1. He's not Mahomes, but he has one of the highest floors of any quarterback in fantasy because of the way that they utilize him, especially at the goal line. So I mean, he's an every week quarterback 1 for me. He's had 2 really bad games, and every other week he's a top 12 quarterbacks. So
he's an every week high-end quarterback 2 for me. I'm not saying to cut him, by the way, but I think I could totally see you doing it.
If you have a Mahomes or something, sure, cut him. But I think you can actually start him every week. Like you can start Cam Newton confidently. You can't start Jared.
All right, that's fair. Listen, in the leagues that I am in, I actually do have Mahomes. So maybe
we're not all lucky like you to have Mahomes.
Dan, Joe Burrow, I think you can cut.
Joe Burrow you would cut.
Joe Burrow also has not. He's kind of overrated. I mean, he's gonna have a great career.
Dare you?
He's gonna have a great career, and he's
gonna be great next year.
He's playing very well for a rookie. But fantasy wise, he's barely a top 20
I'm not
quarterback in fantasy points
I've been
per
really
game.
disappointed the past 4 games. Dan.
Oh, I have some really good running backs to cut.
All right.
Are we done with quarterbacks? Do you want to go to running backs?
I'm done with quarterbacks.
I have a whole list of running backs, so you go first. I went first.
All right, here's my 3 top cuts of players over 50%, and I'm going from highest percentage up. Leonard Fournette is 91% owned. He's basically completely useless. Ronald Jones has run away with the job. Le'Veon Bell has been done.
Can we discuss them as you lay them out?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so Leonard Fournette, I wouldn't drop him.
I wouldn't either.
I mean, Bruce Arians is like he's murdering fantasy managers with the way he handles that backfield. He goes back and forth.
That's part of why. I'm not going to murder my line.
Well, but the thing is, like, Ronald Jones could get benched next week, and then Fournette ends up putting up the numbers. You remember Jones earlier in the year had like 3 straight 100-yard games, and then he fumbled and he got benched for like 3 weeks, and then he just came back.
But Fournette didn't even perform then.
Well, Fournette was a top 20 running back when Jones wasn't playing. Like one of these two guys is going to hit every week. We just don't know which one it is. But
I don't know. Again, a top 20 running back when his backfield mate doesn't play does not strike me.
Well, not when he doesn't play.
Should be owned 91%.
When he's benched. Well, to me, that comes back again to like these guys have value even just as handcuffs for the other one because an injury happens and they're really valuable. So I don't like cutting players like that.
But see, I understand that philosophy and that makes sense. But at the other end of the spectrum, if you think that they're still not going to have value, even then you cut them. I've been saying this about Le'Veon Bell for weeks.
If Ronald Jones got hurt, I would feel very confident playing Leonard Fournette every single week as like a top 15 running back.
Okay, who else would you cut, Dan? You have the floor.
Le'Veon Bell. I've been saying Le'Veon Bell for weeks. I just think he's
had a
done.
bye week last week, so he didn't play. So we didn't get to see.
Well, that's not why I'm saying it. I mean, he's been bad the whole season. Look at his yards per carry; they're terrible. Meanwhile, the Chiefs' running backs aren't that good anyway. It's not the position that people thought it was going to be.
No, I never liked the Chiefs running back the whole season.
Listen, sometimes. All right, go ahead.
The problem is that they're splitting their carries up like very evenly. I mean, Bell is. I mean, he's not getting enough. I think the Chiefs' last few games have been strange. They've just had weird game flow in their games, and they haven't run the ball that much. So I don't think we've actually had a normal game yet to evaluate what it looks like for Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Le'Veon Bell in a normal Chiefs game.
But I'm not sure you're going to see a normal game with Mahomes in. He just changes the whole picture.
But a normal game to me for the Chiefs is that they blow the lid off the other team in the first half and go up by 20 points, and then they grind the ball in the second half and run a ton. And if that's the case, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Le'Veon Bell could be useful. I mean, I don't think either of them is going to be an RB1 at this point unless the other one gets hurt. But I do think that they can both be like, top 30, maybe top 25 running backs.
Okay, guys, here's my list of running backs I would cut. Are you ready? I'm going to name them first, then we can discuss. Melvin Gordon III. Please Please clear out your locker. Melvin Gordon III, clear out your locker.
I can't.
Montgomery for the Bears, clear out your locker. You're done here. We don't need you. Dobbins for the Baltimore Colts. Well,
now you're getting closer.
For the Baltimore Ravens. Dobbins, clear out your locker. You're not welcome on my team anymore. Singletary of the Bills.
What about Mark Ingram?
Yeah,
I'm getting there. Singletary of the Bills, clear out your locker. You're not welcome. You're not welcome here. Mark Ingram of Baltimore, you're gone. See you later. And Bernard for the Bengals after he barely played it all after Nick Mixon was out.
Well, Mixon might be out a lot longer though.
Well, Bernard's gone. He's not even their starting running back. They have.
Well, you have a very short memory. Just the previous game, he had a great fantasy day.
I know, but he screwed me. So I'm cutting him.
I'm not cutting any starting running backs.
That's my list. So let's go.
I'm not cutting even second string. The guys I'm cutting are guys who are not even necessarily the second string, and that's where I have a problem. So Jerick McKinnon. Goodbye. He also got a stinger. They have a bye, and then Mostert's going to be back.
That's a great one.
Tevin Coleman might be back. It's just
I'm totally on your side.
He's gone. And then I'm the only other two guys I would really agree with are the two Ravens guys, Ingram and Dobbins. I'd much rather cut Ingram than Dobbins, just because Dobbins has that theoretical upside. But I just dropped Gus Edwards in a league too. I just think the way with Ingram back, that backfield is hands off again.
Let me tell you something about Ingram for next year. He's going to be on a different team, and he'll be putting up big numbers. You heard it from Ross the Boss first. What do you think?
Oh, I don't agree at all. I think I do think he'll be on a different team, but I don't think he's going to put up big numbers.
Okay,
I think
you heard it from me.
Le'Veon Bell's territory.
Yeah, that shelf life for running backs is really short.
He's going to end up on the Jets.
Okay, he might be going the Jordan Howard route.
Is it time for wide receivers?
It's time for wide receivers.
Okay, Andrew, you go first.
I have the exact same list, but go ahead.
Okay, so there's two guys that I think are easier drops for me, and that's are AJ Green and Darius Slayton. AJ Green, just another disappearing act. He's got a great schedule in the playoffs, and he did have a good few game run there a few weeks ago, but these last two games have again been awful. So I'd be okay moving on from him. I don't think anyone's going to be rushing to the wire to pick him up the minute you drop him. And then Slayton is going on bye, and his outlook has sort of just worsened a little bit, I think, once Sterling Shepard came back. No, Slayton did have a pretty decent game this last game, but I just think he's going to be very boom and bust, and I don't think you necessarily need to hold on to a player like that over the buys. And then the next group of guys I'm more hesitant on. I like stashing them for potential upside because they're theoretically the number one receiver on their teams, but they just haven't been getting it done. And that is Marquise Brown, Jarvis Landry, and Devonte Parker.
Yeah, so you actually nailed my first two. Marquez Brown has been like 34 yards, 14 yards, and 3 yards the past 3 weeks. He's been awful. He's off my team.
Hey, do you guys remember
here's a quiz question. Here's a quiz question. Who has more touchdowns this year? Landry or Dr. Dan Ratner? Who has more touchdowns
tied
this
with
year?
0.
We're tied. Right. We're tied. And we both play in Cleveland.
They both play in Cleveland. They're tied. Dr. Dan Ratner has 0, and so does Landry for the year.
Listen,
get rid of Landry.
And I thought about putting Landry on my list, but his role is better now. I think hold on to him for another week. But no. Marquise Brown, I said cut last week. A lot of these players I said to cut, and their numbers just keep falling and falling and falling. Le'Veon Bell's one of them. AJ Green is another. Marquise Brown is another.
Vocabulary. That's please no more Le'Veon Bell, please.
All right.
I can't hear that name anymore.
Not until next week. And then the other guy that I've been saying over and over and over is Debo Samuel. There's just no reason to own this guy.
I don't feel your Debo hate. Debo's been hurt, but he's coming.
Debo's been hurt. I agree with Andrew.
When he wasn't hurt.
No,
he's been healthy for 2 weeks. Yeah. Let's give the guy a shot.
Yeah, I think
Brandon Ayuk, I love though. Arizona State.
Go ahead and do it.
But I agree. Of the three guys I mentioned of Hollywood Brown, Landry, and Parker, the one I'd drop first would be Brown, just because I agree his role in the offense is not as solidified,
and the offense is not clicking.
Just look at his stats.
Just not clicking.
34 yards.
That offense has a lot more.
85% owned.
That's true, but that passing offense does have a lot more theoretical upside than the Browns.
Like I said, LeVar Jackson has been the most overrated.
LeVar Burton. Cut LeVar Burton.
LeVar Jackson this year.
He's blind on the show.
LeVar Jackson.
He's blind on Star Trek.
We should do a segment on the biggest disappointments in fantasy football this year. Lamar Jackson is number one for sure on my list. He's been the biggest bust in fantasy this year for sure. And we'll talk about that
and
later.
LeVar Burton has as many touchdowns as me and Jarvis Landry.
Is one of my favorite actors. He was great in Roots. I remember him.
He was great. All right, let's do tight ends, guys, and then we will wrap it up. I have been saying Evan Ingram is really nothing special. I'm not saying to cut him, but if you need to make room, I don't see what's special about him.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been saying it about him for a long time, too. The problem is, as we said before, tight end is so terrible that Evan Ingram is one of maybe 5 or 7 tight ends you could say might actually get double-digit targets in any given week. So for that reason alone, I find it hard to drop him.
So probably you hold him just because tight end sucks just that badly.
Yeah, I mean, Cooks for New Orleans was on my list this week.
He was on my list also, and part of it is because Brees went down. I think he gets another downgrade.
But I mean, tight ends, it's such a. There's only like next year in fantasy, I'm going to for sure draft a tight end like in the second round. That can get me points.
I think Jared Cook could still be useful. I mean, they throw to him a lot in the red zone, and Jameis Winston can get the ball to him. I mean,
maybe we'll see what happens.
So here are my guys. Mike Gesicki, I think he took a major. He was inconsistent to begin with, but Tua coming in is bad news for him. He's actually been blocking a lot more on the line instead of lining up in the slot like he was doing before. So I don't want any part of that Dolphins passing game really. And then Jimmy Graham's on bye, and you guys know how I feel about him. He's touchdown or bust, but you're not getting a touchdown on bye, so I don't think you need to hold him. And then Robert Tonyan. With Lazard coming back and Tunyon's role has already been drying up the last few weeks anyway. So I just don't see it with him.
Okay, well, I'm going to say a name that's going to flip you guys out.
Let's hear it.
Because you guys love this guy. Andrew loves him. Dan, I think, loves him too. Ooh. But I'm going to say it just because his quarterback was on my list. Is Dallas?
Travis Kelce?
No, Dallas
Goedert.
Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, Dallas is gone. I gave him so many chances the past few weeks.
So many chances.
I'm still giving him chances.
So
in a week tight end,
he hasn't done anything the whole year. Wentz isn't doing anything this whole year. I feel they really need Deshaun Jackson back. I feel without him they can't win. As soon as Deshaun comes back, I think they'll be in good shape for the playoffs. We'll see what happens.
You need that veteran leadership.
He does have the veteran leadership, and he's unbelievable with
and he's electric.
Going. Yeah, there you go.
Well, I don't agree with that one, but what I will say is with tight end, if you're not starting the guy, you don't need to roster them. There's no point in stashing.
I just like Rodgers better than Goddard. I like Rodgers better than Goddard when it comes to tight ends on Philadelphia.
He made some nice plays last
week. And Rodgers led his team in reception yards last week.
Yeah.
So, it seems that he's more of a target than Goddard. And I love Goddard.
I just think you can't generalize based on, Goddard's only been back for 2 games. So I'm going to give it a little more time.
See.
I think he's.
I have to say, I'm completely impressed. I think we maxed out almost everything we could talk about on the waiver wire this week. I think we did great. This has been MFSN The Hub's waiver wire. Time to snag your players. You get your claims in. They're coming up tonight. And Ross, tell people how you can subscribe.
Subscribe, ring the bell, subscribe, share with your fantasy friends that play in your league. Tell all your league members they should watch our show. I know you don't want to give them an advantage, but they'll get a kick out of the show regardless. Subscribe, ring the bell, and we'll be giving away some of these shirts starting very soon. So make sure you subscribe immediately.
To me first, right?
You'll be getting yours, don't worry. But I'm Ross the Boss, and I love talking waiver wire with you, cowboy.
Lying with a blanket over my head, she asked if she could see who was under the blanket with me. I said, you don't want to find. It is Hideki Matsui in my